damn stunt. I still don't believe it. I'm at a loss for words about that. The world might not believe it, but we all knew that it was coming. It was inevitable. It was a fact of life.
You're listening to Binnall of America Audio.
Woo!
Well, let's talk about the film, because I just watched the movie last night, and it was really different. I'd go so far as to call it artsy, and that's a compliment. And it's very different from your standard abduction-type movie. I mean, there's no talking heads or anything like that. It's really about you and your journey and the people around you, and, of course, then this whole thing with Olsen in in the mountains and stuff. I guess, for starters, talk about, of course, the film's No One's Watching, an alien abductee story. And I guess just talk about what made you want to make the movie in the first place, and your take as the director of it, because it's very different from your standard abduction-type movie.
Yeah, well, originally what happened was I was going out to the learning exchange, learning exchange in, I think, Sacramento, California, and they were flying me out there to speak. So I was like, well, I should tape this. And I got, I used to work at Nickelodeon, so I have friends with cameras and stuff, and so I got a pretty good camera from a friend for free. I knew I was going to have it for a few weeks, and I thought, God, it would be a shame to have this stuff and not, do something bigger with it. What could I possibly do? I was thinking, what would I want to see if I were watching an incredibly cheap on-the-fly movie? I know. How about a documentary about a guy who, thinks he's an alien abductee possessed by some energy with Michael Jackson and Hulk Hogan posters on his wall? That's the train wreck that I'd want to see. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. Mark Olson, I had heard him on Dreamland, and I guess got in contact with him maybe. Don't really remember how that happened. I think I contacted him first, just to see what was going on out there, and he invited me out, and he said, bring a camera, come on out, these things aren't going away, nobody believes me, I've been to the cops, I've, been to the media, nobody cares. So I thought, well, he can't be lying, or else he wouldn't invite me.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll come. So I knew I had the ending of the film, basically, I knew, all right, I'm going out there, I'm going to film these UFOs or not, whatever happens out there is going to be spectacular, either spectacularly Close Encounters of the Third Kind or spectacularly odd in a human creepy sense. And
yeah.
You just know with a situation like this, that's what's going to happen, So that's sort of how the movie gets started. And then once I sort of got on that tip, I thought, well, okay, it'd be kind of cool to sort of go back and interview friends and relatives. And, we've heard stories from abductees, but we haven't heard from their friends and relatives, really. What do they think about all this?
Yeah.
And it turns out that they either don't care or don't believe me. So that's the short end of that.
It was a strange movie. It was different. One thing that really stuck out to me in the movie, and it was sort of a question, and if you haven't seen the movie, people are going to be like, what is this guy talking about? But I'm really confused by the girlfriend situation in the movie. It's really crazy, but in a good way, actually, because I was riveted, because I'm like, what's going on here? This is crazy. So what's going on with that?
Basically, when I started doing this, I thought what I wanted to do originally was do a giant Michael Moore stunt. And because, I'm bored with my own story. It's not enough to just, be an abductee. It's like, no, now I've got to, spice up the movie some other way,
Yeah.
I thought I'd do this giant Michael Moore stunt. To me, what the movie's about is that what should be real in my life is fake, and what should be fake is real. And so that's sort of what that symbolized.
It was weird. I've never seen anything like it. I was, completely baffled. Like I said, I was riveted by it in a strange sort of way. But in the movie, you sort of and you've touched on this energy, I call it an energy situation, this energy situation you have, which seems to take the form of you doing this Chinese meditation dance thing. I guess just talk about that and what happened with that. And even in the movie, you say you're not as interested in your abduction situation anymore as you are in this energy thing. Talk about what that's all about, because I find it pretty interesting, and the dancing is just bizarre.
Well, it is bizarre. It's more bizarre because I'm just like this fat white guy. So it's like anytime you see a fat white guy doing something, moving, it's disturbing. So there's that. So I know it looks goofy and dumpy, but it's like, what can I do? That's my body. But in any event, it's the reason that it's more interesting to me is because it's there. It's an ever-present thing, and it is not my will doing this, and I know that. And I can do it at the drop of a hat. It's not like I have to set up candles and all this sort of stuff. It just is ever presently there, and I just let it do what it wants to do. And because that's true, I feel like it's solvable or provable in a way. I feel like, if someone were to, hook up whatever to my brain, they'd see this happening somehow. Whereas the UFO stuff is still neither here nor there in a way. It's not something that I can, unless I can drag an alien back with me or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is more to the heart of the issue, because there's so much, it's such a spiritual issue, which to me is more important, or maybe, as we're talking about oneness and all that, maybe part of the truth of the whole shebang. Anyway, I feel like this gets more to the point of it. It sort of, exercises me in ways that I wouldn't normally do and don't care to. I mean, it cares about my body more than I do, and I feel like I'm getting all of this free stuff. It's like people take yoga lessons and they pay money for the stuff, and no, the truth is, if you just shut off your brain, this energy takes over and does all this crap that you pay money for. So save yourself a couple of bucks and just shut up for a minute.
There you go. Now, have you tried to apply this meditation to anything else? Like, can the yogi inside you do anything of use, in a sense? Play the piano, cook a meal?
That's interesting. No, I've never...
You should try.
I've never tried that. The only thing I did try, well, as you saw in the film, was pick up a Tai Chi sword. Just because I wanted to see if it would know what to do with it. And, I guess it does. Actually, I premiered this thing in New York, and someone came up to me and said, handed me a card that said Tai Chi Master on it, said, who did you study under? Because clearly you know what you're doing. I'm like, oh, don't you get it? I didn't study under anybody. He's like, well, you must have read some books. I'm like, no, dude, this is just happening.
Weird.
It just is.
Now, something else I saw in the movie, and some might call it the lowlight of the film, is the ass shot. What made you decide to bare your bottom for the film?
Funny fat guy naked in hot tub equals comedy. I don't know. I'm just one of those people who, it sucks that I have, that I'm an abductee who has, for better or for worse, a sense of humor and likes to shock people and gross people out. I mean, all of these things don't go well together because it all sort of sounds like, well, then he's got to be a fraud or not serious. But it's actually both at the same time. And so, I don't know. So just in the film, like, I'm aware of what a fat white guy moving around or naked looks like, and I don't know. I just like that. I like that uncomfortable feeling of, watching people be totally shocked by that scene.
It's quite a scene. It was, I was like, what is going on here? Like I said, this movie, it's wild. It's a wild movie. It's definitely interesting. I enjoyed it a lot in a strange way. It was artsy is the best way I can put it. It's very artsy.
The other thing that actually when I looked at that when we were editing it, I almost didn't keep it because it just seemed like shock value for the sake of shock value, except that I realized the stuff that we're talking about in the tub sort of gets to the heart of the matter, except you can't really hear it because you're still in shock of what you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like it cancels it out, and there's something about that that's appealing to me, and that's almost sort of abduction-like in a way, Mm-hmm. Where you can't really get to the truth of it because it's just being blocked out by your sense of what's going on around you.
Yeah. Now, you also touched on sort of like a big picture issue here, and hopefully it won't be as confusing as the previous big picture question. And that's that you have a sense of humor, and a lot of people in the UFO field either don't have a sense of humor or like anti-sense of humor, and they're like, stop joking about this. What are your thoughts on that whole situation, and have you experienced any sort of backlash from people who were like, you're too jokey, we need serious people, not jokey people? And do you think that ufology kind of needs to have a better sense of humor and stop feeling so put upon?
Yeah, well, yes, definitely to the last part. The first part, no, most people, I'm shocked by how abductees who see my film get it and really appreciate it and like the humor. I mean, I'm shocked by that. I figured they'd think like I'm selling them down the river, but they don't. And the people who did seem to have a problem with it were, Carol Rainey, for instance, were people who are not abductees but, research this stuff. But, no, on the whole, I haven't received any of, you're too jokey. People, I guess, kind of find it refreshing. I don't know. But, yeah, there are a lot of sort of humorless people in this field, but, why shouldn't they be? I mean, they're dealing in a subject that's making them paranoid about everything for, whether that's real or not. And they really feel like they're in on something that most of the world isn't in on. that most of the world scoffs at and laughs at. Not in the same way that I do, I don't think.
Yeah.
In a derisive way. Yeah, I don't think that's really the magic formula to a sense of humor.
And what do you think about present-day ufology and the UFO field? As someone who's sort of just getting into it and who, is just kind of becoming a part of it now, I'm sure you're seeing it and meeting a lot of people and hearing from a lot of people and hearing of a lot of people. What do you think of the state of ufology and where it's going and where it's been and all that good stuff?
Well, I'm equally parts pessimistic and optimistic, I guess. Where I'm optimistic is in the David Biednys, Jeff Ritzmans of the world, and even Paul Kimball. Guys who seem level-headed, and at least two of those three are experiencers of this. And they all do have, a sense of humor and all of that. And I feel like they're sort of the future of this thing. I hope. But where I'm pessimistic is that there's not enough of those guys. There's still this sense of, well, everything's subjective, and so whatever you believe about anything is equally true, and we can't even call a hoax anymore. I mean, I've sort of strained my relationships in going to this X conference and actually seeing some of these guys speak, who are the main guys, like Stephen Greer, who gets up on the stage and is the only person up there who will not use a handheld mic. He refuses. He has to use a lapel mic so that he can gesticulate like an infomercial salesman. And he's talking about, I held a beautiful alien baby. It was beautiful. I have footage of this. It was in a government facility, but I didn't bring it. Oh, okay. You didn't bring that to the disclosure conference. You're holding an alien baby. It's like, this is just absolutely, as Mr. T would say. So it bothers me that those guys are on the main stage, and especially of a conference that is about wanting the media to take this stuff seriously.
Yeah.
And the guys who do take this stuff seriously and are really of this are, well, I just answered your question I didn't get before, are of the fringe, are the people pushed to the side. But I feel like they're gaining momentum. I feel like the days are numbered of the buffoon getting up there, and I feel like even on Monday, having a bunch of pilots and military people sort of get together and do that big press conference, and the disclosure people weren't even a part of that. I mean, how shocking is that? The people who are really working for disclosure weren't a part of that.
Yeah.
Good. I say, so maybe some of these guys will get pushed to the side, and credible people will be able to step forward.
Well, there you go.
As far as where we've been and where we're going and all that, it's time to just get rid of some of the. It's this. You don't really know who's not lying. I could be full crap. However, I've not produced evidence that's crappy. I haven't given you fake photos, fake video footage, or Project Serpo. So, I say, why can't we get rid of those people? Why can't we not pay attention to Richard Doty? Why can't we stop with the Billy Meyer nonsense? Just anything that's in question, don't bother, because there's so much, good stuff and things that are decent and great testimonial from legitimate people or seemingly legitimate people that we don't need to deal with that fringe stuff or, any of the new age garbage that goes along with it. Let's just do away with that altogether and just get real about this.
Well, let me turn that question around on you, because you asked it as a rhetorical question, but let me ask you it as a question. Why do you think it is that we can't get rid of these types of people?
I think because there is the sense of this as a religious quest. I think that's just it. As much as we want this to be a science, it's there's that religious element of just belief. What do you believe? I talk to people in message rooms about this all the time, about Billy Meyer. It's like, how many times do you have to prove this guy a hoax? But then they come back and say, well, the people who are proving it to be a hoax aren't as nice as the representative of Billy Meyer. They come across as kind of mean bastards, me included. So why should we trust you? It's like, well, this isn't Hands Across America. This is, a study, ostensibly. And so, no, we don't need to be nice. We need to do away with hucksters where we see them. Showing me dinosaur photos and saying that you time traveled and took these I'm sorry. I think that's grounds for dismissal. At some point, you got to get off the fence and say, this is total bunk.
The question is, what do you think we should? Obviously, you think we shouldn't, and you think we should get rid of these people, and you can kind of understand why it isn't happening. What do you suggest? That we just freeze these people out and not give them the publicity and don't give them the time of day, pretty much?
Yeah, stop giving them publicity, even if it sells magazines, UFO, my home away from home. And also, maybe we need to form a committee. I've been talking to, I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Brenton, but he's sort of another peripheral guy in this, and we've been talking about, maybe we need to form a little committee of, a clique or something, and try to come up with, Kimball's got the 10 best evidence DVD. Well, let's come up with what's the best stuff or the best way to handle this. Maybe we come up with some protocols or a constitution or something, I don't know, something to go by that you present to the UFO community and say, this is it, we stick to this, and if you don't fall into this category, see ya. I don't know. I mean, maybe you need to do something like that. Yeah,
that's interesting. I'd be interested to see the reception that something like that would get, because then you always have the people that are in the gray area where, you're not really sure what their deal is. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's some people you can write off right away, and then there's some people that are pretty solid, but then there's a lot of people that are kind of in the middle where you're like, well, where are we going to put Linda Moulton Howe? Or something like that. I don't want to pick on Linda. I'm just throwing out a random name.
Yeah. Well, or even, I sort of got into this little argument with Biedny about Don Schmidt. Don Schmidt is somebody who I think has done some excellent research on Roswell and also lied about his background. So does the lying about his background cancel out the good research he's done?
Exactly,
I don't think so.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
So I think there are people like that, and Linda Moulton Howe. No, Linda Moulton Howe, she doesn't have any ill will, ill intent. She's somebody who gets things wrong sometimes, like anybody else, but or maybe defends a case a little too long, maybe. But no, I don't think that that's grounds for dismissal. But if you're Richard Doty and you're a guy who's like, I'm in the CIA and I duped you guys, and you see his name come up in a new case, then as the only person that the anonymous source of the case will talk to about this material or trusts, then you know that he probably is the anonymous source, and you probably don't deal with that case. It just seems like there are so many things that are just obvious that we don't pay attention to because we don't want to rule anything out. I think it's time we start ruling things out.
It's an interesting line of thought. I'm intrigued by it. I just wonder how would you even implement something like that? Just because the ufology field is so fragmented, and it's not even really like a uniform group anymore. MUFON's kind of on the way out, and it's like everybody's in their own little cliques and fiefdoms and stuff like that. I think it would be an interesting sort of idea to implement.
Well, it'd almost be like what they did with the Skinwalker Ranch, which, of course, there you have a millionaire who gathers together a sort of holistic group of people from different fields of interest to study this one ranch. Well, instead of course, we don't have $1 million unless, Bigelow or somebody like that wants to fund this, but basically it would just have to be a loosely knit group of people from the various fields who decide to get together and do this.
And what about one of the big subjects we talk about here on the show, and you sort of fall into that category too, is young people in ufology. It seems like either there isn't enough of them or the trend is changing and people are sort of getting into it. That's kind of the impression I'm under. For a long time it's been like there hasn't been enough young people, but in the last few years it seems like it's getting better. What are your thoughts on young people in ufology? Obviously we need more of them. We need more young people to take up this thing. Why do you think it's not as popular as it seems to be with, the older crowd?
Well, I think part of it is that nothing has come of it. Anytime you see a big, this is it, here it comes, it never is it, and it never does come. I also think the X-Files was a huge factor in it ever being popular in the first place, and that's off the air.
Yeah.
And so there it is. I just think people outgrew it. It's like anything else, any other sort of fad. It sort of comes and goes in that way. But also, I think older generations grew up with this being real in a way, of, flyovers in Washington, D.C., and Project Blue Book and these sort of things that took it real, even as they dismissed it. That was at the beginning of dismissing it.
Yeah.
They at least took it real enough to be on TV, these Air Force people. They made it real enough to be on TV to dismiss it, whereas now they don't even do that anymore.
It's been dismissed.
Yeah, it's dismissed. So I think that they're just of a different generation of people who really wanted to get to the heart of this. And now it's like, we already know. Plus, we're sort of, we've got the internet now. It's like, we know everything, Just like we were talking about subjectiveness. It's like, well, you can read anything on the internet, and suddenly you know facts, So there's no point in studying it. Whether those facts are real or not is a whole other question, but it's irrelevant because, this is the information age, and the important thing is just absorbing information. It doesn't matter what that information is.
You kind of touched on it in a way, but I guess I kind of have a feeling on what your answer will be. What are your thoughts on what's going on in the last, couple weeks here with this UFO disclosure movement that's really seemed to pick up steam with James Fox and Larry King and press conferences here and there and all this sort of insanity of disclosure and witnesses coming forward in the last, week or so?
Well, it really depends on how much of the media picks it up and makes it a story. I mean, news cycles are just so quick now. It's hard to keep anything in the news cycle. So I'm guessing it's just going to get buried like it always does.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I have, especially with it being sweeps period too. Kind of have a feeling that might have been a big part of why it's gotten a lot of juice.
But it is interesting that, even with our culture of contact thing, we got nothing but positive mainstream press, which is shocking,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely shocking. And even seeing the way Anderson Cooper and Larry King has treated this, there does seem to be at least a change in the way the media is handling it to some extent. And that's good. So maybe, in the long run, something good will come of it. I just don't think it's going to be immediate.
And now you said you were down at the X conference. You said that was kind of like your first exposure really to the exopolitical type movement. And apparently you say it strained your relationships. It must be with your other ufologist type friends or something like that. I hear it on the home front. I guess talk a little bit about why you even went down to the X conference and what your impression was of the exopauls, aside from your thoughts on, trying to weed out the crazies.
Well, I went down there because Steve Bassett was kind enough to come and speak at my thing and, invited me. So I went. And my friend Melissa was going to have some art down there. So, we all got into a car and went down there, and it was fantastic in some sense. But now, what is my take on what?
The exopauls, the exopolitical movement, and all that good stuff. It's sort of
it's really weird. It's weird.
Ufology.
My take is that it's ironic because even at the disclosure conference, they're not disclosing everything because they're up on stage saying one thing, and this isn't true to a person, but it was true enough that it was creepy. Late at night at the bar, you get a couple in you, and they pull you in close, and they say, now I'm going to tell you the real truth. It's like, now I'm going to tell you the thing I never tell anybody. And if you tell anybody this, I'll deny it. And then, and again, it's more like sort of esoteric stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to have out there to a nuts and bolts crowd. And I just wish that they all knew that they were all doing that, because maybe if they knew that, they would say something publicly about the stuff they say privately. So I don't know, that to me was kind of shocking, but it was just cool to really be able to hang out with people,
Yeah.
Like I didn't care so much what was going up on the stage, but at night to hang out with Nick Pope and just to be able to hang out with a dude, and talk about 9/11 or talk about, his time in British intelligence or any of this stuff is fascinating to me,
Yeah. What kind of stuff were you hearing at the bar that was esoteric that stood in contrast to what you were seeing on the stage, as much as you want to share?
Well, it's not even. I can't. I mean, it's
That's fine.
Stuff that I really can't.
Yeah.
Maybe if these guys pass away, I'll.
Nice. I'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be an asshole if I didn't ask. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, actually, one thing is who was it?
You don't have to tell me who said it.
Well, I'll just tell you, Dick Farley. I talked to him the day before he went on stage, and basically what he did was he went on stage at the end of Sunday's day. They had a big panel discussion with as many people who stuck around as possible who, partook in this. He was one of them. And, he was telling me the day before at lunch about all these people he suspects are, FBI, well, whatever they are, FBI, CIA, whatever, government dupes. And so it was no surprise to me when he then launched into this rant on Sunday about all of that stuff, really in front of the media that they were trying to present such a credible case to. So, stuff like that where he, I guess, outbursted with it is fine. But at lunch, I don't know, just some of these people come up to you and they start talking to you, and he was one of them, like they know stuff,
Yeah.
And they start talking to me about my work. Like, I'm shocked by how many people read my column or know me or whatever. Start talking to me about, I really agree with what you're saying, and you're onto it. You know what it is, or whatever. Trying to get you to talk, and they're listening to you in that way that one listens when they're holding back something they at least think that they know, and are judging your response whether or not they should tell you what it is. Or all of that sort of, like, shady crap. Like, I just have no time for it. It's like, you know what, dude? You're a human being. You don't know anything about reptilian aliens. Like, none of that's true. You don't know anything about anything. You're just a guy who's read a bunch of books and maybe has some money. Like, in the end, that's it. And I am that too, except that I also have these odd experiences, that I can't fully make sense of. But basically, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still just poop-chucking monkeys trying to make sense of the world, and it scares me the amount of people on that stage that believe they have the world figured out, and it is such a square peg, round hole situation that I don't know why they must be out on leave, is all I'm saying. I mean, when Alfred Weber gets up there and starts, these are people I've never heard speak before, so I'm like all excited, like a little kid. I'm like, Greer, this is going to be great. I've heard about this guy. He'll be fantastic. All my friends love him. Oh, Alfred Weber. Oh, he's a huge name. Big pollutant. And then what does he say? He says, the U.S. government took down the towers during 9/11 using alien beam technology. It's like, what? Well, maybe Dick Farley was right. Maybe you are an agent.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's going on there with the whole thing.
But then Stephen Bassett is such a nice, seemingly level-headed guy. Why does he have these people on his stage? I don't understand.
Well, I don't really understand it myself. They bring their own cachet of what they deem to be credible backgrounds, too, You can throw in that Carter administration stuff, and it sounds pretty impressive. But, you got to leave some of the crazy shit at home, because it's not going to help us at all.
Well, where do you stand on this stuff? I mean, I don't want to be like,
you got to bring me on your show.
I know, but I don't want to be bad-mouthing these guys, and you're like, oh, but I love Stephen Greer. He's the truth.
No. I don't have a problem with anybody, any of those guys. Weber was cool. He's been always cool with me. We got along great. I sat with him at the X conference, too. He's an interesting cat. I think my problem with the exopulse sometimes is that they just promise too much that never comes through. I think I hear, it's always this next, it's like, it's like being a Red Sox fan before they won the World Series. That's what it's like being in the UFO world, and the exopulse are like the diehard Red Sox fans, because they're like, wait till next year. It's always wait till next year with the UFO crowd, and especially with the exopolitical type folks. It's always wait till next year. It's always, this guy, there's going to be a breakthrough, this relief pitcher is going to be the one that fixes everything for the Sox. No, it just doesn't seem to happen. But, eventually, like Paul and I had a long conversation about this, we had a baseball show last spring, and we talked about it at length, and eventually, there'll be a 2004 Red Sox version of ufology, but, we're just going to have all the pieces in place at the right time.
Well, maybe I feel more deeply, about it, because this is my life, you know what I mean? Like, in a sense, they are talking about things that apply to me, and if they're crazy or they're lying, I don't know. It's maybe I have more of a stake in it, because that sounds all nice and rational, but, as I'm listening to you say that, I'm thinking to myself, but really? It doesn't really bother you that he said that they use alien beam technology to take down buildings? Like, that would just...
No, it doesn't bother me at all.
Hard to see that on stage. Really?
Oh, no, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't have anything invested in the truth about UFOs. I can see why you do, because, you've had these experiences with the UFO knots, if you will. So, but I mean, I'm the type of person, I find the people fascinating. So that Alfred's going up there and saying that is like, wow, what's going on with Alfred? He believes this stuff. This is crazy. I got to talk to him and see what where he's getting this information from, and why he thinks this, and does he think it's a bad idea to be saying it? Those are the kind of things I think. You know what I mean? I'm always sort of trying to wonder. I'm trying to come up with the next question all the time. You know what I mean? Not judging the information, because that's.
So you're a better person than I am, because
no.
The question to him would be, "Are you insane?"
Oh, no.
I would just lead with that. And
find a nice way of saying it. Like, what do you say about the people who say you're insane? That way, I take myself out of the equation.
Yeah, what do you say to critics who say?
Exactly, because, I don't want to get mixed up with that kind of thing. So you got the book, you got the film, you put together the conference, you're writing for UFO Magazine. What's it like being, a multimedia person and doing all these different things? And sort of like what do you look at for inspiration, I guess you could say, in these different areas?
Nothing. I mean, they just sort of come to me. I mean, I'm a writer, and so it's easy for me to write. And, I mean, that's it. Really, the hardest thing for me now is doing 2 podcasts. One is weekly, one is bi-weekly, and that is just eating up so much of my life that, I don't know, I'm probably going to burn out on that soon. But, no, as far as the other stuff goes, no, I'm fine balancing it. I don't really have an inspiration other than going to message boards. Really, when I talk to people on message boards online, it's a lot of that ends up becoming the stuff that becomes columns and things like that.
Well, you got to join up in the Binnall message board already. Jesus.
Yeah?
You're missing out. The USOF.com.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. Or just go to Binnall of America and
Right,
click the forum button. You'll find it. Obviously, you've had these experiences all your life, and you've sort of shared them with your friends and your family. When you meet a new person, how do you gauge that sort of thing to tell them, like, what happened to you, and do you decide not to tell them, or is that person that just sort of, like, it comes out within the first 10 minutes, or is it like you have to sort of be very careful who you tell, that kind of thing? What's your situation with meeting people and telling them your elaborate story?
Well, I generally don't unless they, figure it out and ask about it, or, I mean, I'll lead people astray forever if I can. My own roommates didn't know about any of this stuff until, well, even when I wrote the book, until they read it,
Oh, wow.
Like, they always knew I was sort of into UFOs or whatever, but they didn't know. So, yeah, I mean, I will never lie to anybody, but if, I say I write for UFO Magazine or I wrote a book about, aliens or whatever, I'll talk around it, but I won't say that I'm an abductee till the last minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather somebody get to know me, and then it's a lot easier to say he's crazy or not crazy if you've got to know him first. So
Exactly.
being me, I just spoke about myself in the third person. That makes me crazy.
Who do you think you are, The Rock? Now, are you thinking about doing another Culture of Contact festival?
Yeah, we're going to do it annually. Again, talk about burnout. Yeah, we're trying to go bigger and better this year, get the art into an actual art gallery, and we want the centerpiece to be, and it probably will be, the entire Andreasen family on the stage for the first time with Betty Andreasen's art in the art gallery. And if we can pull Ray Fowler out of his home, him as well, although that's going to be a harder sell because I know that he doesn't really want to speak publicly anymore. But that will be the centerpiece of it.
And when you put together your podcast and stuff, how do you decide who you're going to have on for guests and stuff like that? And where do you like to take the shows?
Well, when I do Book of Thoth, I mean, they sort of give me people, and that's sort of the deal that we have. So whoever they give me, I speak to.
That's cool.
Culture Contact, so far I haven't had a problem yet, getting guests. I just know enough people that kind of want to come on and do it. So, and Culture Contact is mostly, it's going to be mostly abduction or UFO stuff, and Book of Thoth will be all over the place, in terms of subject matter.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't reject anybody, I guess, if that's sort of the question. I would talk to Greer. I would talk to Alfred Weber. I would talk to anybody.
Yeah, you got to. It's that's half the fun of having a show like this.
Yeah.
You're kind of like in the UFO field, but at the same time, there's also that whole separate group of like abductees, and they're kind of like their own little group of people. Would you say that you're in that? You're in that whole like realm of people as well, right? I mean, is that their own little group, and they have their own conferences and stuff like that, or do they sort of have to hang with the UFO folks?
Yeah, no abductees, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know. I don't speak for abductees really, but I just know the people I've met in New York, and no, they don't have conference. I mean, Culture of Contact is their conference. This is the first ever abductee-run UFO conference. So, this is it. This is sort of what we've come together to do.
How do they feel about that whole thing, sort of being marginalized in a way by being a part of the UFO field, but on the side? You know what I mean? Like, kind of like how I'm sure, the cattle mutilation people might feel, or the crop circle people might feel, because they have their own thing, because it's always lumped in with ufology, they can't really stand alone.
I think they're more worried about being marginalized as human beings by everybody.
Oh, jeez.
Well, no, I mean, it's true.
I'm just being sarcastic.
I don't think they think in terms of ufology or any of that. No, some of them don't even really follow it, you know?
Yeah.
They just are happy to have their artwork out there and be, you know, taken semi-seriously by Joe Public. I don't think they really have issues, political issues like that.
What about artwork on your end? You mentioned a lot of artwork from abductees. Have you delved into that whole realm of artistic, other than obviously your film and the book is technically kind of art, but you know, with the paint and all that crap, have you done anything like that?
No, I can draw a hand turkey. That's about it.
That's perfect for this time of year, though.
Yeah, that's true. You know, maybe I'll activate the energy and see what happens. But no, I have no artistic bone in my body.
I'm telling you, you got to activate that energy and then try to do something else. Like
I know, I gotta it's like Heroes. I gotta have a superpower by the end of this.
Exactly, but you're only using it to do meditation. But it's going to turn out that you know you can. Who knows? I'm excited to find out. Well, I guess talk a little bit about before we sort of wrap it up here. Talk about the book because you neglected to send me that. You only sent me the film, so I don't.
You didn't ask me for the book.
I'm just teasing you. No, I should have. Obviously, I didn't know. I didn't realize.
More free stuff.
I know.
Get that out of my bedroom. I said, it gets it out of my bedroom. That'd be fantastic.
Well, there you go. Send me the book, and then you're almost guaranteed a second follow-up appearance. But
awesome.
Talk about the book, and obviously the book, I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land. I guess the obvious question should be, and I'm sure you get it constantly, is why don't the aliens land? Let me ask you that.
Well, it's the same thing we're talking about, oneness and separation. If the fact of humanity is that, on the whole, the thing we find most true about ourselves is our sense of self, and that sense of self is not real, then these beings who know that are not going to interact with it. And to come here and explain that to us does nothing for us, because unfortunately, this does get into the realm of spirituality where it's an individual journey to take or not to see this stuff. And so no amount of explaining it is going to matter. And I don't think, you know, it's interesting because the person who is least likely to believe that is in abductions, I think, is Bud Hopkins, maybe David Jacobs, but really Bud Hopkins. And yet, in his book, written with Carol Rainey, Sight Unseen, I feel like they talk about things that really back that up in terms of, you know, talking about how these aliens do things and speak to us in ways that subvert the conscious and speak directly to the subconscious. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, yeah, that's why they do that, dude. Not because they're malicious aliens that don't want to deal with it. It's because they literally can't deal with us on that level because that's not the most real part of us. The most real part of us is what's underneath.
Exactly. It sounds interesting. Now, what are your thoughts going forward here as far as the UFO phenomenon goes? Do you think we're going to get an answer? You and I are pretty young. You're like in your early 30s, I think, and I'm almost 30, as scary as that sounds. What are your thoughts on where this is going? Are you and I going to see an answer to this in our lifetime, or are we going to be, you know, hanging around at the conferences like the old folks that we see at the conferences nowadays?
2012, we all die.
Really?
Oh, no. No, but I don't really know where it's going. I know that I've seen been shown visions of things that look an awful lot like an ice age coming and things like that. I don't know. Do we have a lot of time left? You know, on Earth, all of us, to figure anything out? I don't know. I feel like not. But then we've been hearing that for decades, and we're still here. So maybe we will figure something out. But I don't really have a good answer for that.
But you don't see, like, well, if I talk to some people, they're going to say, you know, there's an awakening happening, and you know, slowly but surely the UFO secret's getting out through these drip disclosure things, like, you know, this past week, and, you know, it's going to turn into a tidal wave, and soon there'll be disclosure and that kind of thing. That's, you know, where do you see that sort of thing happening? Are we still going to, you know, we'll be felled by natural disaster before the aliens show up in the first place type of thing?
Well, I think that's all irrelevant. You know, I think disclosure and all that stuff is irrelevant. I don't think it works that way. I mean, again, that's like trying to make it logical and trying to bring it down to our level, and I think it's much deeper and richer, if you will, than that. I don't think that there's much to disclose. I don't think that there are secret bases with aliens and government people shaking hands and all that crap. I mean, no. I don't believe.
All right. I've sort of always likened this thing to like a generational type of thing also, in that it's just going to get to the point where people sort of just accept it as fact without even having to have the answer spelled out for them. In a way, like, as our generation grows up and then our kids and then their kids, eventually it'll just kind of like become a fact of the matter that they are out there or something like that. Do you think that's sort of possible?
Yeah, well, actually, I think we've been at that stage for a little while. I feel like, aren't we? Doesn't everyone pretty much, A, distrust their government ever since Nam and Kennedy, and B, think that the government and Air Force are lying about Roswell? So, I feel like it's one of those things that has just bowled us over because we're just complacent, It's like, duh, of course they're lying about this, and there's nothing that we can do about it, just like everything else we think they're lying about. So, who cares? It goes into that, who cares, let's continue playing video games sort of thing.
Do you think people should care?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty important question, whether there are higher beings here or other beings here. I don't know if they're higher, but other beings here than us, yeah, of course.
Okay, well, let me extend that then to, like, the question I hear a lot from sort of like the mainstream folks, because, like I said, I was at the X Conference too, which was in 04 maybe, or 05, and the big question that really resonated with me was from one of the mainstream people at the press conference, and he said, to sort of like turn around to the question I just asked you, why should people think it's important? Yes, is your answer. How do we get people to understand that it is important? That's kind of what he was saying, and he was sort of saying also, how's this? People only care about, how's this going to affect the price of gas, or how's it affect me personally? How do we get the issue of UFOs and ufology and extraterrestrial beings or whatever they are? How do we get that subject to resonate with, Joe Sixpack?
I think by doing things, not to toot our own horns, but like culture of contact, which is make it relevant, be able to just speak openly and naturally about it, and not, sound like a douche. And, like step one, get a real haircut and not sound like a douche. That's step one. Step two is like introduce music and, comedy and, give it the Jon Stewart treatment. I think that's what resonates with people is a healthy dose of skepticism and cynicism, but also the underlying theme of, oh yeah, and this stuff's real. And the comedy comes from being pissed about the fact that no one's paying attention to the reality of it. I think it's that whole Jon Stewart thing. That's sort of what we're into, right?
Yeah, all right. Good answer.
How many bad haircuts have you seen in ufology?
Oh.
Is it time to give that up?
I used to have long hair, and then I cut it like in May, and now I've become like the opposite. Now I'm like on that same level. You know what I mean? Like once I cut my hair, like the next day, I was thinking to myself, these assholes in ufology need to get haircuts. I'm tired of this horseshit.
And if all else fails, we just get some, giant-breasted, long-legged women, and
we could really use that in ufology. I mean, that's a given. That's a given. We need more good-looking, sexy, young women in the UFO world, which is what I've been pushing for a while now. So we've covered a ton of stuff here. We kind of bounced all over the map, but it's been a good conversation and really loose. But I really appreciate it. You remind me of Kimball in a lot of ways. When we do interviews, me and Kimball, it ends up kind of like this, where the questions kind of go out the window and they turn into this like freeform thing. What's next for you? What do you have on the plate? What's the agenda for Jeremy Vaney? What can we expect coming down the line from you?
Well, hopefully book 2, which is written and in the hands of a publisher who had actually heard that I was writing a book and asked me to see it, so hopefully something will come of that. If not, no book 2. Culture of Contact next year, and we'll probably do some events throughout the year, smaller events. But mostly, I don't have anything really huge on the agenda. I'm just sort of playing it by ear.
Nice. Sounds good. So what do you think regarding the second book? When do you think that'll be around? Sometime next year?
I don't know. I'm really like just so burnt out and stuff that if I'll send it to a few other publishers if this one says no, and if they say no, I'll just put it out for free next year or something as like a whatever, website or something. Like, I really don't care. I already know I'm not going to make money, so I might as well just, like, give it to you for free.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, like I said, Jeremy, I've had a great time talking to you. It's been all over the map, but we've covered a ton of stuff. I really appreciate your perspective. It's interesting to hear from someone who's an experiencer and who's also getting into the field, and your thoughts on all that good stuff. People, as I said, you're just a multimedia maniac, and people can get all kinds of stuff from you. You write for UFO Magazine, of course, Culture of Contact podcast, and Book of Thoth podcasts, either one of those. Also, the book is I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land. The film is No One's Watching, an alien abductee story. And you can find all this sort of great information on Jeremy at valiens.com, www.valiens.com. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
That does it for this week's edition of BOA Audio. Huge thanks to Jeremy Vaeni for coming on the show. The website, of course, is www.valiens.com, valiens.com. Of course, super duper uber huge thanks to Jeremy Vaeni for his fantastic generosity. The donation of all these books, 22 at last count, all a part of Vaeni Mania at Binnall of America. Buy something from the BOA store, write to me, say, hey man, I heard about the Vaeni Mania special, and I'll send you a copy for free of Jeremy Vaeni's book, I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land. All this courtesy of BOA and Jeremy Vaeni. It's Vaeni Mania at BinnallofAmerica.com. Act now, while supplies last. We'll have more information at the website very shortly. Moving right along, we're so late in the process this week, let's just skip right over BOA Audio listener feedback. If you want to be a part of it, if you want to get in ahead of the curve, send your emails to boaaudio@hotmail.com or go to the BOA website and click the contact button. Either or, and then you'll be in the inbox for BOA Audio listener feedback. Huge thanks, as usual, go out to the fantastic BOA staff, Chiron, Leslie, Arlie, Joe V, and Tina Senna. Thank you so much for your help and support. Day after day, week in and week out, month after month, and it's now going on year after year with these folks. They are fantastic, and we would not be able to do what we do without their help. BinnallofAmerica.com, make it a part of your everyday search for esoteric news and opinion. I've already plugged the shit out of Vaeni Mania, folks. This is a rare opportunity to get a free book plus stuff from the BOA store. I know some people are sort of on the fence, or they're putting it off, or there's some reason why they haven't bought something from the store. Your procrastination has paid off. I really shouldn't do this sort of thing, because then, you're going to think that procrastination will benefit you somehow, but this time it does, because when you go to the BOA store and you buy something, you get a free copy of Jeremy Vaeni's book, I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land. Offer stands as supplies last. We've got 22 books right now. We're going to have a counter on the BOA website very soon to let you know when the big deal is going to run out. Let's get down to business here and preview next week's show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be, it's already in the best of BOA Audio. One of the most frequently requested guests over the last 2 years finally arrives on BOA Audio as we welcome the Venerable Nick Pope, former head of the British Ministry of Defence UFO Project. Nick is a superstar name in the world of esoterica. Anyone who has a passing interest in ufology knows Nick Pope. He is a massive star in the world of the esoteric. He also brings a whole cachet of tremendous information from his time in the British Ministry of Defence, a fascinating perspective on what it's like to be in the UFO field from the government perspective. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to dig in deep to international ufology as usual. It is a tremendous interview, my friends, and it's next week on Binnall of America Audio. I have heard countless interviews with Nick Pope over the years, so when I finally had the chance to sit down and talk to him myself, I had a boatload of new questions that I had not heard anyone ask him before. Yes, maybe some of these you've heard him asked before, but I'm telling you, there's a lot in there that I'd never heard brought up before, and I want to get these answers from Nick Pope. on a whole plethora of topics. So definitely tune in next week. It's part of a triple bill of superstar names in the world of esoterica. Nick Pope is number one. The next two, of course, the Christmas special, and then a special guest to close out 2007. We'll get into that later on down the line. Next week, though, Nick Pope, former head of the British Ministry of Defense UFO project, finally arrives on BOA Audio next week. And on that note, I got nothing left to say, my friends. I am so sorry that this episode has come at you so late in the process for those of you who are the early birds, like to get the audio show on Saturday night or Sunday. Insanity reigns, I guess. I'll delve more into this some other time. For now, this is Tim Binnall, thanking you for listening and signing off.